This podcast is brought to you by LMU Munich.
Our next talker is Lasse Schuirmann from Fun to Business, how open source changed his life. It will be very interesting. Thank you so much for coming, Lasse.
Thanks. Yes, welcome to this talk. So, who is here to have more fun? Okay, so who is here to make more money? Who's here to do both? Okay, that's a good impression. The most hands were raised for who's here to have more fun. I think that's a very, very good thing to do. So this is the talk about from fun to business. This is the talk about basically my story, how I ended up being here, when before I was just a very regular student at the university, occasionally doing like little free time jobs. And now I'm doing something where I believe in, where like, for example, the Coala project, where I will lose a few words on it, where we have, I think, almost 500 contributors by now. So one of the main messages is have more fun. So I'm going to start with this, and I hope I don't forget to end with this as well. Because this really helped me. Also, making less money is totally okay for me, and helped me having much, much more fun, and also helped me making much more money per hour. That's working less, but getting a bit less money, so it wasn't really an issue for me. And I think this is a healthy thing to accept that you might want to consider as well. And another thing that I want to pitch to you is being an entrepreneur is fun, especially if you like having the freedom of doing what you want. And there are certainly ways to make that happen. So let's start in the beginning. Who listened to the lightning talk yesterday about Yaphos? Most people, okay? So Yaphos was yet another free operating system. It was an open sourced project. I didn't properly open source it, I just like pushed the code public. That is not open sourcing for all the companies in here. This was like really, really fun. I wasted months of my time on a program that could, on an emulator, put like A's and B's on screens, because there was a scheduler running that had two processes, one printing A's and one printing B's, and everyone was looking at me like a goat, because I was working for months on this tiny thing. But eventually, like, this was a great learning experience for me. It was a lot of fun for me, and I would totally do it again. And it led to me asking my friend, hey, do you want to join in? And he was like, no way. C, assembler, operating system kernel, you're crazy. I'm going to write a code checker. But during that time, and this is a small excursus, but it's important, during that time I made a Google Summer of Code. Who here knows what a Google Summer of Code is? That's almost everyone. So like one or two sentences summary. Google Summer of Code is a program by Google that funds students to work on open source projects. In, I think, 2013 or 2012, I was a Google Summer of Code student at GNOME. And I had a very, very good mentor who pushed me on every single commit to have only the highest quality in there. And I learned so much from this. And most importantly, I learned how proper open source works. And I would say that this Google Summer of Code, for me personally, was the key point that did change my life in a totally other direction. Before I was working as a dual student at a company, besides studying, and then it was like a very clear path. So I would work at that company and do all that boring daily coding, whatever the boss asks for, you know? And eventually I got into this community and I learned how to code properly, how to write proper commit messages, and how to use Git properly. And I also noticed that the senior software developers at this company and later also at other companies, they don't know this shit. Why not? I mean, proper usage of Git makes your life a lot easier. And so this was really something that was very, very crucial. Although I'm not longer very actively contributing to GNOME, I'm incredibly thankful for the support I got there. And I was very happy to give them something back and do something for a good cause. I'm a GNOME user myself. So going back to the original line. So my friend was writing this code checker. And that was eventually renamed to Coala, the code analysis application. He was writing it probably because he was very annoyed with my source code. And me too. And we used SonarQube at the university, and we were forced to have 0 SonarQube issues. And then SonarQube was like, hey, here you have 1,000 white space issues. Please go and have fun fixing them by hand. And we were so annoyed. So one thing that we did by design in this project was automatic fixing. So you could just run Coala, fix it for me. Who knows what Coala is? Okay, a bit, very few people. So I will do a short pitch on Coala. Coala is a tool that finds problems in your source code. Basically, very simple, and it fixes them as well, which back then was the main motivation. We never believed it would be something useful in the end. We just did it out of boringness and to have fun and to try something out. Actually, we tried out Python. I hated Python at that time. Now I love it. Now I hate C. Back then I loved C. It totally changed everything. So if you look at the world of static code analysis, you have lots and lots of different tools, which you see on the top here, and you have lots of different ways to use them. You can use a code analysis tool in your editor. Maybe you write in GitHub in your command line. Maybe you want to have an HTML report, whatever. And there's so many different tools. And some of them have pretty good integrations into some of those things, and some don't. But overall, it's pretty stupid to having to connect all those circles, because it's way more circles than that. And I had one presentation, I actually connected those circles with lines, and it took me 20 minutes just to draw those lines, not even speaking of coding all those integrations. It's basically like rewriting LibreOffice if you want to have spell checking for German and English. Nobody does that, right? So what we did was we put an API in between. We didn't do this by design. We just coded, right? We were bored, so we coded. And eventually we found out, oh, what we did was this. And people find it useful. We were very surprised. So Coala is this API, and you can use it. Coala will use a lot of existing tools for you. It has analysis for over 60 languages thanks to that, because many existing tools do very good code analysis. And we just pull it in, and then we have some own algorithms that we use for making more generic code analysis, especially if you look for indentation stuff. You can actually write algorithms that work on a very small definition of a language. And then you could actually use this algorithm for a language that you write tomorrow, if you just define the language. And that is like this kind of stuff that we're into nowadays. But what made Coala so successful, especially in terms of contributors, and also led the way for me becoming an entrepreneur? Basically, we began thinking like a startup. And we began to think about how can we find more contributors? Because we noticed, hey, there's some buzz around this project, people like it, it would be nice to be able to do more shit, because it's fun. So there's a few key points. I did a presentation last year at the PyCon DE about how to grow an open source community. And I'm going to summarize the 3 key points that I think are very important if you want to scale an open source project, contributor-wise. And I think one very important thing is to have issue levels, because people need to know where they can start. Where can they start to contribute? And if you take the full road, you can not only say like, okay, those existing issues, they are low difficulty, medium difficulty, high difficulty, and then people can like climb up the ladder. And if you go like full down the road, you can actually create issues for newcomers. So whenever you see a typo, instead of fixing it, you just file an issue. And then you have like lots of typo issues, which people can use to learn the workflow, to learn how it works. How can I interact with this new community? How can I use this weird tool called Git with all those unpronounceable commands that make no sense in my head, so that they eventually make sense in your head? And I think this is like probably the most important point to give people an easy start. Second point is you want contributors to grow with you, and you want as an experienced developer, you want fresh ideas on your code, and as new developer, you want like an experienced view on your pull requests. So why not do a, say, symmetric or asymmetric, whatever, why not do pull request reviews in both directions? If I, as like the creator of the project, the mighty magical person that I never was and not am, but sometimes people seem to feel that way, why should I not have a review from a newcomer who has a totally different view on this? And then on every pull request, you get a very diverse set of views that increases your quality by far. But also, it makes every new person feel like a full member of the community, because everyone equally participates in not only coding, but also controlling the quality control. And it also feels way less negative, because the feelings about code reviews, I think they are like very important. You can either feel about code reviews like, nah, this is something I have to do because QA department says so, or there's some stupid maintainer who always reviews my code and tells me, oh, this is shit and you suck. Give them the chance to fight back. I think this is important. And lastly, do you want I can upload the slides as well and tweet them with the hashtag, if somebody reminds me after the talk. Lastly, ask them for feedback, because like you will always be in your own world, and this is very important not only for open source, but basically for everything that you do. If I do a talk, I usually try to go to like 1 to 3 people afterwards and try to ask them like, hey, what was bad about this talk? I'm not interested in anyone telling me what is good about that talk. I want to see what can I improve to make the experience better. So if you feel like right now, why is he talking about this? I'm not interested in this. Feel free to tell this to me afterwards, so I can do a better job next time. And it's the same with all situations. If you ask people for feedback, you will have a better image on how you can actually make something that works for them and for you. You can find a good compromise, or maybe an even better solution that you never thought about. And they will feel much more appreciated because their opinion matters. To sum it up, with those methods that more or less dynamically evolved, Coala began to grow like a startup because we focused on growth and not on fast development. We focused on making it easy to be in the community to help us, instead of like having every maintainer focus on the next feature. And with that, a problem evolved. I kind of had this full-time, free-time job where I was working like 30 to 50 hours every week on Coala besides studying. And eventually, I was obviously thinking about, hey, how can I make a living of this? Because this seems to work, people seem to like it. So I started freelancing. I had a professor from the university coming to me, hey, we got some budget left, if we don't spend it, we won't get it again next year. You know those situations? And then I got my first contract. I worked to the government office to register my tax number, and it was all exciting, the first step into the entrepreneurial lifestyle, and then I had to declare taxes. I'm very, very much afraid of paperwork, because paperwork is not fun. So there's one thing, what I did in the beginning was I would just do like freelance gigs for people or consulting gigs. I helped a company save 2 million euros revenue every year by just consulting them for 2 weeks about code quality, because that's what we do with Coala. So being involved in an open source project, or even being like the founder of such a project, is, in my experience, like a huge credibility record. And it helps very, very much convincing people that you can actually help them, and you can actually help them. What I tried, and I'm only showing this because this failed, I'm not trying to sell this, like this is a product that I worked out, and it totally failed and nobody bought it. This is basically a website where because I had this consulting gig and it worked so well, I basically wanted to make plans to get recurring revenue, right? If you want to be an entrepreneur, if you want to found a business and not like a hope business, you want predictable income while having fun. Never lose that out of sight. So I tried to make packages where people could like buy packages to boost their open source projects, to like buy maintenance for that, or have recurring consultancy sessions. Doesn't seem to work. I don't know why. I didn't really try to market it, but apparently that's not the way to do business with open source. And what I'm doing now with my freelance agency, I scaled down the efforts a bit because I have been going a lot in the direction of founding an actual startup, which I will be telling more about in a minute. Is that with ViperDev, I am now offering to build a minimal prototype for companies or startups that need like a minimal prototype. Because we have this open source experience, and now we also have this startup experience, this entrepreneurial experience that you need to like define what is the minimal prototype. And like what I want to say with this mainly is, if you want to be an entrepreneur, find a niche. Like you can do hope business and hope that you get some contracts. But if you find a niche and say like, hey, I'm offering an MVP for companies, I have a more or less clear target group. It's actually not clear enough yet, but and I have a product that I can repeatedly sell. Then you're already far ahead of your competition. And just make a product that you like doing and try to put it on the market. Search your network. Sometimes works, apparently. So the next step for me was founding a startup. This was also related to us having a kind of maintainer burnout problem at Coala, because everyone was just busy reviewing stupid mistakes of newcomers that could have been solved by Coala. So we built a bot that would do an automatic code review, and that would look like this, roughly. So whenever you push code in a pull request, you would get comments right in the lines in the source code on what you can improve. in the beginning, we weren't fully sure about like how can we keep it as open source as possible while convincing the companies to pay. And that's a difficult balance, because like the more open source it is, the more fun it feels to me, at least, because I want to do open work. I want to do work that matters also for people who can't afford it. But those people who can afford it, they should pay for those who can't, ideally. And that is those corporations that need like extra support and everything. And what we noticed with, we talked to lots and lots of people. By then we started building a team, so we are a team of 3 people. And we talked to lots and lots of people. And we noticed that people don't see, people in the companies don't see like the value in paying for an open source product. You actually seem to need a proprietary license, even if it's just for show, to convince them to actually pay. What you can do, however, and I think this is one of the common models for a reason, is to have an open core model like GitLab, have a community edition and an enterprise edition, which is what we are trying to go for now. Because for the community edition, you can actually ask companies to fund the development of the community edition. Right? You just go to them and say like, hey, if we build you this community edition, you will save 5 minutes per day per developer just from this, and it will be free forever. It's licensed MIT, you can use it. And then you have a clear return of investment from their side. Like they can say, whoa, I'm saving 40K every year with this. And you just say like, okay, I'm taking half of that, one-time fixed fee. And then you basically can fund the development of your open source core. And you can actually do that with multiple companies in parallel, if you find them. But we succeeded to do this with one company, and we also got some funding from the German government in cooperation with the EU, which is some equity-free program. There seem to be lots of those programs. Look out for those, because let's start a little rant about investors. I don't like investors. I don't like the American model of investors, because I think they tend to end up in building non-healthy businesses. If I want to build a business, and I do, I want to build a healthy business with revenue, but also that helps the society in some way. I'm not interested in building a business, like pumping it up, going from one investor to another, increasing the valuation, but not increasing the real value for the clients, and eventually exiting, and then the whole ship sinks after I'm out, and then I don't care anymore. This is not really a healthy business style, and I think investors tend to lead towards that, because the interest of an investor is always like the exit. They buy shares, and they want to sell them for much, much more. So looking out for equity-free funding, especially government funding in the seed stage, in the very early stages, is a very viable way to start a startup, and it does work for us. And now we are developing this business. This is the story to date. It's not finished yet. We are into this. The funding started in April. We are now developing Gitmate. We have a lot of fun. We are going to conferences. We are talking to lots of people to find out, like, what do they exactly want? So if you know what you want, please tell us. And if you think about going into entrepreneurship, I hope this got you some insight and maybe piqued your interest a bit. Never forget to have fun, please. Like, with all the money in the world, if you have fun while doing your work, that is the best you can have, in my opinion. Given that, I will finish my presentation now. I'm open for any questions and also feedback, of course, but only negative.
Thank you very much, first of all. That was Lasse. Do we have any questions? How to become a millionaire? I think maybe not. Maybe later.
Yes?
Oh, once, sorry.
Well, okay. Where do you see this going in the next? Do you have a long-term vision for this, or 5 years, 10 years?
Okay, so the question was, where do I see this going, and if I have a long-term vision? I personally don't have any long-term vision. I just work for whatever seems most fun to me. I'm basically maintaining my Viper Dev business with this new product as a plan B if everything goes haywire, because startups are a risky thing, and you cannot be sure that your startup in the end will get you even a normal revenue profit that will fund you. Our short-term vision is that in September or so we plan to release the Enterprise Edition. Within the next 1 or 2 months we plan to release the Community Edition as open source. And hopefully within a year we will be at least halfly profitable, ideally. And if this isn't sufficient, then we might apply for a follow-up program if we think that our product is useful. Because this is something that we are very, very hardly working on right now. Is our product useful for clients? And some parts of it seem to be. Some don't seem to be. Some parts that we originally imagined seem to be totally useless to people, which is okay, so we don't need to build them. We can build other stuff. We have lots of ideas. But there's no real vision beyond this year. I mean, it's a startup. Everything goes up and down. It's like a whole roller coaster every day. I think it's good that way, at least for me.
Thank you. I think we have here. Next question.
You are a very friendly, developer-friendly organization, I guess. You are welcoming newcomers. And are you guiding these newcomers on how to develop their code, or are they encouraged to use your own product to check their code quality, or do you share your, for example, experiences from Google Summer Camp? Is there any place that you share these experiences with your newcomer developers?
I'm not sure I fully understood the question. The question was, is there any place where I share my experiences?
And do you guide your newcomer developers, like contributors? In places, are you guiding them how to develop or how to improve their code quality and stuff?
You mean like the Coala developers, Coala newcomers? So we have lots of documentation for the Coala newcomers, which are like the guides. And the maintainers are basically at all times of the day or night, there are people at the Coala channel that will help you as a newcomer getting started. Does this answer the question? Okay, thanks.
Do we have any questions? No? Okay, our next schedule is in 30 minutes we will have a great lunch. And then the next talk will be start at 3 o'clock with Daniele Procida with his title 10 Years, 5 Deployments, and a lesson, why can't Python be as easy to deploy as PHP? If you want to listen more, then we will see us hopefully 5 o'clock. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you. See you later. Bye.
Thank you.
And thank you, Lasse, of course, again.